Welcome to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series, brought to you by the CT Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston. We're having a conversation about work-life balance, how to navigate and overcome challenges within your career, and how to make business more accommodating to a diverse workforce.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Working Wisdom podcast. This is your host, Komal Farooqi, and I am with Eaa Airventure, a University of Houston alumni. She is a sales analyst for America's Aviation Lubricant department at Shell Oil, and we'll be speaking to her about her personal stories and journey into the workforce. All right, let's get right into it. So, who is Eaa? Can you describe yourself in one adjective?
Wow, one adjective. I think I'm going to have to go with energetic.
Energetic?
That was my nickname growing up when I was a kid, was Energetic Eaa, because, for obvious reasons, I was always bouncing off the walls. But when I got a job at Shell, it became, it describes my industry as well. So I think it's pretty fitting.
Okay, so we'll stick with energetic from you, and then when we're going towards the end of the podcast, I want to describe you.
Okay.
Of how I feel you are through our conversation.
Oh, I'm curious to see what you're going to say.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about working at Shell?
Sure. What do you want to know?
So what are your tasks as a analyst, sales analyst? What exactly do you do?
Sure. I started working at Shell about 6 months ago. So I graduated in December 2017. After a long and fulfilling career at University of Houston Bauer College of Business. And since then, I've been a sales analyst in the Americas Aviation Lubricants team, and it's a whole new world. I didn't really choose to be placed in aviation. I was selected for that role, so I didn't have an aviation background coming into it. And the simplest way for me to communicate it to my family and friends is I always tell them, you have a car, right? You're probably a car owner.
Right.
And you probably take it in every now and then to get an oil change or something.
Exactly.
So when you're a plane owner, you have to do the exact same thing.
Okay.
And so plane owners, they have to take their plane in and get their oil changed, get new fluid, new grease, new oil. And then usually they can do it themselves or they take it to someone who can do it for them. But those products are the products that we sell. That's our portfolio. So we have turbine engine oil, piston engine oil, fluid, and grease. And we are, a big part of the aviation community. So pretty much as long as flight has existed, Aero Shell has had products on the market, which absolutely blows my mind. So our timeline goes back to the early 1900s.
Yeah, far back.
Yes, very far back. And being part of the aviation community means we show up at, events such as Eaa Airventure, which is actually the world's largest aviation air show.
Okay. And that's in Houston?
It's in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yes, of all places. So I was there actually 2 weeks ago, and a fun fact is it's actually the world's busiest air traffic control tower for 1 week and 1 week only, and after that, everyone clears out. There's about 12,000 people who fly their planes in. And that can be very small two-seater general aviation planes. It can be military planes, cargo planes, private jets, basically anything that you think of that comes to mind that's not commercial aviation, which, before I started in this job, all I knew was commercial aviation, right?
Right.
I need to get to, LA. I need to get to New York. I'm going to hop on Delta. I'm going to hop on Southwest, and they're going to take me there. But there's actually this huge community, very tight-knit community. Maybe not huge, but very tight-knit of people who own their own planes or, fly for whatever reason. And it's really fascinating to be part of that community and be at those events and just get exposure to the whole process.
Wow, I feel like I entered a whole new world. I know Shell is gas, petrol, that's it.
That's how I felt for the last 6 months. So, that's only the tip of the iceberg what I just explained. So
since you talked about aviation backgrounds, let's move back to your time at UVH.
Sure.
And let's go into journey as a student and how you got into all of this. So you majored in marketing?
That's right, I did.
And you were part of the PES program and
Yes.
several organizations at the University of Houston. So let's go more into it. What made you come to Bauer?
Right, so I don't think I have a typical Bauer joining story.
Okay.
I wasn't very intentional, sort of like aviation. It found me. I didn't find it. So in order to understand why I came to Bauer, I have to go all the way back to when I was 16, and I was taking classes at San Jacinto College full-time. So I was a full-time college student.
Okay.
And when I was 18 years old, I got my associate's degree, and I also got my high school diploma the same time, same month. Yeah.
Okay.
Just a few days apart. And so I was 18, and I was like, okay, I have no idea what I want to do.
Right.
And most people have, some people know exactly what they want to do, but a lot of people don't. And I was definitely one of them. So I was like, okay, my priorities right now are to go to a school. I want to continue my education without a doubt, but I want to be in Houston close to my family where I can live at home and just sort of have like a little bit of a safety net.
Okay.
So I knew I wanted to go to University of Houston, and I was thrilled when I got accepted. When I got accepted, I was a class major. I was planning to major in English and creative writing. And, for about 2 weeks. And then when school started, I actually, before it started, I enrolled in a bunch of hotel and restaurant management classes.
Okay, so with the Hilton?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a really strong HRM program on campus, one of the top in the nation, actually. Mm-hmm. And I really loved it. And I think that's when I first started, becoming committed to the idea of, exploring my options outside of school, just thinking more about the future and what I would do when I graduate. Because before it didn't seem like something that was in my grasp,
Mm-hmm.
And I joined a couple of the student orgs, I got a leadership role in the Hotel Management Society, and really my focus for that semester or two was just figuring out what I enjoyed.
Yeah, on campus and being at U of H, right?
Exactly.
And it's kind of hard because the campus is so big, so you don't know where to put yourself.
Yes, it's huge.
Yeah.
And, CRM, I'm lucky because HRM is a good community of people.
Right.
And, when I started doing things in the organizations and stuff, I just realized my passions were always on the creative side. It was, making flyers or figuring out how we're going to recruit people. And I had heard of a few people who joined, Bauer and PES, and I eventually decided to switch my major to marketing because I didn't want to be limited in my career options by, okay, my degree says hotel and restaurant management. If I wanted to do a purely marketing role, I would have to explain that, every time I went to a job and applied. So I wanted to get something more broad, and obviously Bauer has so many perks, so it wasn't a hard decision. And from there, I did the same thing. I just got more involved, figured out what I liked doing.
So you got involved in Bauer.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay, so and then you joined Enactus as well.
Yes, I did.
Or you get selected for Enactus.
I joined. So are you familiar with Enactus at all?
I have, I know when I was taking Gen B, they would talk about it a lot.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
What do you know about it? It's okay if it's not much.
Isn't it like your social work?
Yeah, sort of. It's social entrepreneurship. And basically what we did, we tried to capture problems in the community that we could help out with in a sustainable way.
Okay.
So it's a project-based organization. It's international. It's all around the world. There's thousands of chapters around the world. And here on campus, our presence isn't as strong as it is at a lot of other universities around the nation. And when I got involved, I loved the mission. And, I saw a huge opportunity for Enactus to be bigger and stronger than what it was. So, I took on a few leadership positions in there and eventually ended up being president, but I think, it was a really rewarding experience. And I think it was because I didn't join, the biggest, shiniest organization.
Right.
I joined the one that meant something to me.
Yeah.
And I
joined, you were getting something out of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best thing about Enactus is that while you're developing yourself, you're also helping the community.
Right. So did you if you could take away one thing from Enactus that helps you today, what would it be?
There's a lot of things that I took away from Enactus. I think a huge part of Enactus is that every year they have a regional and national competition.
Yeah.
And so our focus the whole year is just really preparing for that. So it taught me a lot about everybody's working on a project, and for the most part, your mind's pretty short-sighted. You're focused on, the academic calendar. You're focused on getting your project done through December or getting that grade in by, September 7th or whenever your date is.
Yeah.
And I think Enactus taught me to look way beyond an academic calendar, and it taught me to look, outside of academia as a whole and into the community. Because we were, really, I think, helping people, and changing their lives in some small way. one project we worked with was Plant It Forward Farms,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a community of refugees who, came from different parts of Africa and, are living their life in Houston now. And this nonprofit wants to give them the tools and resources to become farmers.
Startup. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're actually literally farming.
Oh.
Yeah, and they're selling their crops at like farmers markets around Houston and things like that. But Enactus wanted to step in and say, okay, this nonprofit is turning refugees into farmers. We want to turn farmers into business people.
Right.
So we come in every week and we would give a presentation. And, sometimes it could be as basic as these people don't have an email address. They need help getting an email address.
Okay.
And so it was really rewarding to see a very
simple.
tangible, reward from, being involved in the community.
And like one little thing helped them so much, which is like nothing for you, like making an email address.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
So, since you were talking about like balancing time and like due dates and stuff like that, what do you say, like how do you balance your time like effectively, like when you were a student and then you were like, trying to be in the organizations, get your classwork in, how was that?
It was not easy.
No, I just graduated in May, so I know.
Okay. You know
Yes.
the feeling, right? Were you involved in any student organizations?
Yeah, so I was in a couple in Bauer,
Okay.
and then I also did PR, so I was in a couple at that campus.
Okay, so you double majored?
Yes.
Okay, so you know what it's like to be stretched thin.
Yeah,
So I
all
want to
the
hear your
time.
answer to this as well. But I think the answer for me was prioritizing,
Okay.
and based on both importance and urgency.
Right.
Some things are really important, but they don't have a due date.
Right.
And you have to do them anyway, just to be successful. And some things are a little bit less important, but they have a very urgent deadline. So you just have to be aware of, okay, what are my goals and how is what I'm doing tied directly to those goals?
Right.
And you just have to be very proactive about managing it.
Well, that's good advice for me because I'm still learning this balancing thing. Like, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. Like, I got through school, I did what I had to do, but...
Were there ever times where, like, you were juggling a bunch of balls and you just couldn't catch them all?
So, like, in my house, we kind of know, like, if someone throws 1,000 bricks at you, you have to learn to catch them. So I think that was okay, but I don't know, it's not easy. Like, it's difficult to balance school, being in an organization, making it to class, all those things, and then finding a job, internships, and all that. So, I don't know, it was difficult.
What was the job search process like for you?
So, I actually work with my father's company, so it wasn't difficult. And I also majored in marketing.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're on the same track. But I did do a small internship with this company, this nonprofit organization called DePelchin. Have you heard of them?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so I did an internship with them. But did you do any internships?
I did. I was interning with a company called Hilti, which is a construction tools and services company. Not many people have heard of it outside of the construction industry.
You've been in so many different categories.
Yes, I have.
Really?
It's really, to be honest, I owe it all to PES.
Okay.
I don't think I would be anywhere close to where I am now if I hadn't, started that program.
PES.
And Bauer, of course, because Bauer gave me PES, so it all comes full circle. But when I was interning with Hilti, I think it was kind of the right place at the right time. And I want to kind of take a moment to emphasize the importance of knowing your goals, because before that semester started, before my very first semester in PES, I took a little while to make a vision board, and I'd heard of vision boards before, and I was like, okay, whatever, it's a vision board. But I actually took a moment to sit down and say, what are my goals? And I put them in SMART format. They were specific, measurable, attainable,
timely,
relevant, and timely. And I had about 4 or 5, which I found was about as much as I could really focus on at one time. And
do you remember them?
I remember the most important one, which was I want to live in the Pacific Northwest when I graduate from college.
Okay, very specific.
So, no longer my goal, but it was very specific. It was timely, right? And it could possibly be attainable. And that was really my focus.
Wait, why was that like?
So I'd had family in the area, and I'd been there several times. I loved Washington. It's very different from Houston. If you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of mountains to climb, there's markets to go to, there's plenty of coffee, which is very, very important if you're me. And so I really wanted to go, and I just like I like exploring the possibility of, I grew up in Houston for 20 years, but that doesn't mean I have to be here for the rest of my life.
For the rest of your life,
So it was kind of just an experiment, like, can I do it? It was kind of almost a challenge to myself because I didn't know if I would have the opportunity, if I would have, you know, the bravery to say, I'm going to go to a different state. And interning was the perfect opportunity to test those limits and ask myself those questions, right? Because it's a little bit less commitment than accepting a full-time offer. But I ended up getting my offer for Alaska and Seattle. So I was in Alaska for 5 weeks and Seattle for 5 weeks.
Alaska.
I was the only intern to be in 2 different locations, and I was also the only intern to be completely by myself. Everyone else had at least one other person with them. And it was one of the most transformative experiences of my life.
And this was through your internship that you got through PES?
Yes, it was. So Hilti was and still is a partner with PES.
Okay.
And you know, the way the PES program works is that these partners, the company partners will come to campus and talk about, you know, here's our values, here's what we're looking for. And
mission.
Yeah, they'll talk about available opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a really good way to kind of see, would I be a good fit? So when I walked into the interview, I remember sitting down and I knew it was a construction company, right?
Right.
But I also knew my goal, which was to move to the Pacific Northwest. And to me, that's what was more important than anything else. So when I sat down, that's what I told him. I said, yes, I'm very interested in Hilti. I'm interested in being an outside sales representative. But what I really want is to move to the Pacific Northwest. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm sitting in this chair is because I know Hilti has geographic mobility and that you guys celebrate that because they're all around the world. They're actually headquartered in Liechtenstein.
I really like how you went in there and you're like, okay, this is a construction company. I don't know if I care about that, but I care about my goal, which is going to go through this. So that's really good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure anyone who's listening can, like, take away from that.
Exactly.
So since we're at this point, we will take a short break and we'll be right back. Keep listening.
Join the conversation. Bauer College's Working Families Initiative is bridging the gap between industry and academia to create a conversation on how organizations can make the workplace more family-friendly. We're talking about flexibility, maternity and paternity leave, and career transitions. For more information about the Working Families Initiative at Bauer College, including upcoming events, visit bauer.uh.edu/workingfamilies.
Okay, so now that we're back from our break, that was really good to hear how you took all these like challenges and risk. So I really want to know, were there times in your life, starting at Bauer, or starting the job or the internship, where you felt fear or self-doubt or like you couldn't handle it? And if you did, how did you handle it?
So I was looking back on my time at Bauer and my time after Bauer, and I really think there's 4 main times in my life where I really faced significant fear and self-doubt. So I think the very first one that kind of kicked it all off was my first phone call that I picked up when I was making my very first cold call in PES.
Okay.
So PES is the nation's #1 sales program, and it's called the Program for Excellence in Selling. And part of that, it's a 2-semester long program at minimum, and our first semester, our class project is to host a golf tournament.
Right.
That is supposed to teach us transactional sales. Transactional meaning you pick up the phone, you call, it's either yes or no, and you move on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have a fear of phone calling, and I think I had a bit of that. But when I first sat down and, I dialed the phone, I knew there could be a no at the other end, right?
And this is no to like buying a golf package.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
You could sell a lot of different things. You can sell a business sponsorship package, golf balls, embroidery on a shirt, or just selling players to come out and participate in the tournament itself.
Okay.
So there is a variety of things you can actually sell. And I think in class they taught us that it takes 10 no's to get to 1 yes.
Okay, yeah, I've learned that too here at Bauer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is something I think I took with me up until this day, right? It's just, you can't put too much emphasis on that no.
Right.
In fact, you should celebrate every no because it gets you one step closer to that one person who wants to actually participate in the golf tournament, or more broadly, it's one step closer to that opportunity that is meant for you.
Right.
And so I think that's what I took from that. And like I said, it really it really carried me all the way until today.
I think we do all want to know, how did the first phone call go? Was it a yes or a no?
I had so many things happen. I can't even remember. I think it was probably a hang-up.
Oh.
I got a lot of things. I got hang-ups. I got angry people. I got people who couldn't hear me.
Oh, no.
You have no idea. I think I made like 1,000 calls. It was quite a lot, but I mean, it was still fun in the end, and it definitely taught me a lot of lessons. And I'm not scared of calling anymore, so that's good.
That's good. So are we moving on to your 3 other ones?
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
So as part of the golf tournament, you know, that wrapped up and it was time to recruit and I looked for my internship. That's when I applied for the one in Alaska with Hilti.
Okay.
And so I think the next defining moment for me was the moment when I stepped out of the plane in Anchorage. And I kind of looked around. My sales manager drove up. It's a very small airport, the smallest airport I had ever been in at the time. My sales manager drove up, you know, in his car to pick me up. We're driving through downtown Anchorage and he says, well, this is downtown, obviously. And I was like, that was not obvious whatsoever. I would not have known this is downtown.
Compared to Houston?
Yes, it was such a different experience. And there's a lot of things that were obviously very different about Alaska compared to Houston. Geography, the people, absolutely everything.
So what was your fear and self-doubt in that moment?
Just being 3,000 miles away from home.
And it was so different.
Not having an intern companion to be there by my side.
Yeah, because you did say you were the only one that was alone.
Yes. So I had to learn to be very self-reliant. But, you know, I had my goal, and if I ever felt nervous, I just told myself, you know, at the very worst, this is temporary. Right. This is a 3-month-long internship. If I don't like it, I can leave and start something totally new. But I was committed to exploring that, you know. If nothing else, I was going to give myself to this internship, you know, give it my all. I was an outside sales position, which is a whole other element of fear because I was using my Google Maps, looking at the CRM, plugging it in, and a lot of times I would show up and there was just like a gravel lot there, right? And so there was just no building. So there's confusion, there's a lot of questioning that goes on when you pull up to an empty lot and you're supposed to be meeting a customer. Yeah.
3 months.
Yes.
I gotta do this.
Yeah, and, you know, I really enjoyed a lot of things about it. Even when I would pull up to an empty lot, I still, you know, I always looked at it as not, okay, this is an empty lot. I always said, wow, that was an adventure.
Yeah, and it, for some people, it becomes like a frustration point. You're like, oh my God, like, what is going on?
But I just never could get over how lucky I was to be in Alaska and in Seattle.
Very positive.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't know if you know much about the construction industry, but I didn't know anything about it going into it, and my role was basically, if you see a construction site, they have little trailers sitting on the site, and you just go up to them, you knock on the door, and you say, hi, how's it going? Do you have any products that are giving you trouble? Do you need anything? Are you out of anything? So there is some preparation that you can put into it, but no matter how much preparing you do, you're never going to know what is on the other side of that knock. So that really just taught me a lot about, you know, not being afraid to take risks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell from your experience along this whole journey, you definitely took a huge risk.
Yeah, and it definitely paid off, right? Because I used the experience that I got in Alaska and Seattle every single day since I've been there. Actually, probably one of the most significant things I took from it was this thing I call adventure mentality, which is just the moment when you know there's an uncertainty or something that an unknown outcome, and you just step forward and just do it anyway, because you know that no matter what, it's going to be a lesson that you can take with you.
See, I think you kind of answered this question, but before we go back to your list, I did want to ask you, like, in these situations of fear and self-doubt, how do you make yourself comfortable around new people or places, like, especially new people?
Right.
Like, when you walked into Shell and, you know, you're this new employee, like, how did you make yourself comfortable? Or, like, what did you do where you were like, okay, I should do this to make myself more fitted, or I can do this to be more, I don't know.
Yeah, so your question is about adaptability, right?
Right.
And I guess I've never thought about it too much, but I have been in a lot of different situations.
Exactly, especially hearing, like, your whole journey from Bauer, from your associates, the internship, BES, like, you're always in a place where you're with fresh people. Like, you haven't seen these faces, so, like, what do you do?
I almost feel like I might be used to being uncomfortable.
Right.
Because I don't even really register the different, you know, environments, even though they're drastically different. being in aviation, you don't meet the same people that you meet in a construction site in Alaska, or that you meet in the sales lab at Bauer, or that you meet at home in my hometown in Clear Lake. It's, it's very different purposes, different people, it's different environments. So I think what you have to do is find a common thread, and I think that thread is just knowing who you are and what your goals are. Because if you know that, that's going to be your compass for whatever situation you're in, whatever people you meet. If you know what your goals are, it's going to help steer you to finding what you need to find and what you need to get out of any given situation.
And you maintain your own character and personality, and then whoever gets attracted towards being around you is attracted towards being around you, right?
Yeah, I would say that's a huge goal.
Especially in a work environment, because I feel like you have all these people that may have more experience than you, and you might get nervous.
So that is also one of my, I'll just talk about that one. So that is definitely one of the more pivotal points in my career and my life, is starting my full-time job, right?
Right.
And just the fact that, you're starting at an oil company that has a long heritage, and it's a very different experience coming from a college classroom and working on college groups. It's a different demographic, it's a different mindset, and there's a lot of adapting that I had to do to switch from that environment to the one I'm in now.
So did you have training and...
My training is more on the job.
Okay, so it was like you were just out there.
Yes. So, my manager provided really excellent support when I first got in the office, and, he showed me the spreadsheets, but, my knowledge of the industry came from going to the events, talking to the customers, working with our team. Those things are more experiential, so I was more immersed in everything. And I think that's what helped get me adjusted the most.
Okay, so being around the company and its events, and so what did you do at these events?
Well, I've been to several events so far. So one of them was Eaa Airventure.
Okay.
And that was the one I mentioned. That's the largest air show in the world. So I was on the team helping prepare for that event. I was helping coordinate logistics. So at one point in time, we had 27 people on site. And we also upgraded to a new booth location on site. And because of that, there was a lot of questions that were unanswered that needed kind of tending to, like, how are we going to fill this space?
Right.
So we worked on putting together a photo booth that would help people go to our new Twitter handle, which is Shell_Aviation, if you guys are interested.
Are you telling our podcast members to go there?
If they're interested in seeing the good work that our team has done. And we have virtual reality at the not at the photo booth. We have virtual reality at the booth.
Like things to attract people
pull people in. And of course, we're selling oil there as well. So that was our big activity that we really want to convert our customers, give them some show specials, reward them for being like loyal customers, and answer their questions. We had a lot of technical talks so that people could get their questions answered. It's very gray when people are trying to work on their mechanics. There's a lot of questions that come up when they do it themselves that maybe they've always wondered, should I be doing it this way or that way? So it really ties into your major, marketing. So you are doing a lot of marketing out there. Okay, I see. So moving forward, did you finish your list of fears and doubts? Well, I was going to say there's one more, and that is when my parents moved to Hawaii 5 months ago or 4 months ago.
Permanently?
Yes.
Wow.
So that was a huge, actually, I didn't think that would have an impact on me at all, to be honest. I was like, my parents need to just go. They need to do it. My mom got a job at University of Hawaii, Manoa as the technical director for online learning. So she's going to be helping build online courses. And it was quite a shock for me, having lived in one place for 21 years of my life and always having that support there. And then when they left, I was like, wow, like I'm alone. And of course, like I have my friends and family still all around me, but it's really different, and it really made me empathize with anybody, because I'm certainly not the first and I'm definitely not the last person to have family overseas. And it really made me empathize with people, like, I have to be a whole new level of self-reliant now.
Yeah, because you kind of went to U of H also because you were close to home.
Yeah.
So now it's like a different feeling, I'm sure.
Now, my career is taking flight, hopefully.
So you said it impacted you. I kind of want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Jumping off of that, do you think millennials more than others struggle with fear, self-doubt when it comes to success? Does it impact them?
This is a really hard question for me to answer.
Right.
To be honest, I do not know the answer to this question. And I feel like...
Maybe we could answer it together.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas? Because I feel like my answer would be very based on my limited experience with my friends and like.
I would say transitioning from like a college student into a working environment is like the biggest fear and self-doubt because you get very scared.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to describe like getting over like this nervous, scared part of going into an industry which was like so big, like Shell's huge, you know? So I guess how would you describe getting over like the fear of like walking into Shell, or how did that come in between your success, like, you know, being scared walking into Shell, like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't think I have the knowledge or experience to be working in an oil and, you know, lubricants.
That's a very real fear that I face on an ongoing basis, because a lot of people at that company are very tenured and they're very experienced, and I'm brand new to the aviation industry. I'm not a technical expert, I'm not a pilot, and we have a lot of people on our team who are. And I think the biggest thing is to leverage that as an asset, not as something that can hold you back, but as something that can get you much further.
And you can overcome, right?
Because, you know, I just think about, you know, maybe it's not comfortable to be the least experienced or the newest joiner, but it's certainly a privileged position to be surrounded by people with 20 years of experience as a pilot or in the aviation industry. So the way I do it, I just try to ask as many questions as possible. And I ask questions about, I don't know, what were your hurdles in life? Like, I don't just ask them about the good things. I don't just ask them, you know, anybody can talk about that.
You take it back.
But I want to know, what did they face that they struggled with and how did they overcome it? Because I know at some point in my career I'm going to be facing, you know, some kind of difficulty. Yeah.
So what's your advice to someone who does struggle going from college student into a workforce? One piece of advice you could give.
Well, it's something I guess every college student will have to face at some point, is that pivotal moment when they walk across the stage and they're like, okay, what next? And I would say one piece of advice would be everything is going to be okay.
Everything is going to be okay.
And, you know, it sounds generic, but it's true that if you know your goals and you know what you want and you just work at it persistently, you're going to find what you want.
I feel like I took that away from your conversation. If you know your goals, you can, you know, move forward. So how do you define success with, like, the goals you have? And you know how you said you went with the vision. So what's success to Emma?
I feel like everybody would have a different definition of success if you ask them. And for me, when I think about it, I think the biggest thing that success means to me is going forward without fear, recognizing that your biggest mistakes are going to become your biggest lessons. And I think if you can keep that in mind, everything is a lot less scary and a lot more manageable.
Right. So that's something you could even tell someone who deals with self-doubt or fear going into any industry. But when you do have, like, questions or you do want advice, who do you go to? Like, when it comes to, like, career and, like, school, if you were to ask someone?
I would say it depends on what I'm facing and what question I have, but I worked at Rockwell Career Center for a little while, one semester, and they're a great resource for anybody who has questions about their career or if they'll be a good fit for a job or if they're looking for a job. The university has career services that can do aptitude tests for you, and if I had any professors, I would go to them and ask them, you know, industry relevant questions about usually professors have had a career before they start.
And they've done this so many times. They teach students for a reason because, you know, they want to help you be concrete when you're moving forward.
So I definitely would leverage them as a resource. And then, you know, for everything else, you have family, friends, and, you know, all that kind of
I feel like students get afraid to even ask. Like, there's a fear when it comes to asking your professor. So I really would emphasize, like, you know, take advantage of being a student and, you know, like, you're in this place where it's okay to be confused.
Absolutely.
Right. So how would you encourage others to define their own success?
I would say take time to think about what success means to you. There can be some very specific things. I would say come up with some SMART goals and figure out where you want your life to be in 5 years, in 10 years, and that is entirely up for your own determination.
Well, from our conversation, I have taken away so many things, so I feel like I can describe who Eaa is. And if I were to describe you in one adjective, it would definitely be a go-getter. So that's you right there, a go-getter. And I really, really, really enjoyed learning about your experience and your journey. And it has been a wonderful time here at Working Wisdom with Eaa Armour and your host, Komal Farooqi. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series from the CT Bauer College of Business, brought to you by the Working Families Initiative. The initiative aims to provide support and access for women in business school and the workforce, and to generate research that organizations can use to implement policies and standards to benefit a diverse workforce. For more information about Bauer College and this podcast series, visit www.bauer.uh.edu/podcast.